acknowledge that the land the Go Open Data Association is webcasting from is the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit and is home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Toronto was built on sacred land that is part of an agreement between Indigenous peoples and extended to allied nations to peacefully and respectfully care for it.
Go Open Data. This is Mission Control. You are go for lunch.
Take some time away from your office bay to the Good Cafe. We meet up virtually. All our beverages are free for open data coffee. Welcome to the Good Cafe.
Indeed, welcome to the Good Cafe. It's early May. What are we actually at? May 3rd already, hard to believe. Spring has sprung and we're gearing up for the summer. Welcome everybody. It's nice to have you aboard on the Good Cafe, and I'd like to introduce my co-host today, Jonathan Brown. If you want to bring your camera on, Jonathan. This is exciting for us to do together because Jonathan actually is part of the Go Data Association. He's our Director of Education. He's also an expert in bringing non-formal learning with the two formal education sectors. So your background is 22 years, I guess, in adult and alternative education. And you're also a Director of Innovation for Sustainable Cobourg, which I think brings your interest into the hack that we're going to talk about today, for sure. And you led a team of 2 educators and 2 engineers who are runners-up in the Portland New River Challenge. And you also enjoy camping and biking around town and networking in Germany while visiting his in-laws. And I should add, be careful of Jonathan on the Autobahn. I think that's a bit of an inside joke. But welcome, Jonathan. We've got 2 guests today that we're going to introduce shortly. But you and I are going to just talk a bit about where we've been so far on the Good Hack 22. It's become quite a story. I think it's less a short story now and more into a novel. You might want to think, right? But you did a tremendous amount of prep work for it. So maybe just review where we've been so far. Our conference just recently passed, of course, and the Saturday was the hack day. So where are we at? How did that go? And what's up?
Well, I have to say it was a smashing success for all the ones that were presenting, the workshops, and the hybrid delivery model. We had a combination of the Zoom, and we were also hoping to get in-person participation at Venture 13, which is the mini Mars Innovation Hub out here in Cobourg, a town of 20,000 people. And I have to say that the technician there for the Venture 13, Ryan Warner, did a great job at organizing the camera shots. And we anticipate using that capacity at our May 25th event, where we're targeting the high schools in the local area. And I was just talking to the instructional lead at the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board, and also the teacher at ENSS High School in Brighton. And they're going to bring classes to the event, both online and in person. So we will take advantage of that on May the 25th, targeting high school students. And we will be training them using the resources that we captured from the May 21st workshops, as well as the drone demonstration that Ryan Barrett provided, where he flew his drone over the Venture 13 building and created a 3D model. And then he presented what you would do with this skill set and this inexpensive technology in order to facilitate the transition to renewable energy and green infrastructure. So that was a great demonstration, and I'm going to bring Ryan back in to do that again with some other buildings, so we can cover municipal buildings, university, college buildings, satellite campuses here in Cobourg, and also hospitals and schools. And once we begin to pull in the open data from the Ontario Open Data Catalog, we can begin to create these 2D maps, and do some basic analysis to create a little heat map, showing us where the need is in the community or where the opportunities are to transition to renewable energy, but also address the well-being, the community well-being through this technology. So lots on our plate. And I'm really excited that today, after 3 years, we're finally making inroads into the formal education system. And what we want to do is draw them out of the classrooms into the environment with this technology. And the MIDON project that you mentioned, Keith, we were runner-ups and we won $10,000. And then I took my $2,500 and we put it back in to building capacity. So we purchased water kits for the school, and they used the kits in the grade 9 science to learn how to test the quality of the water. And then the environmental technician, Jen Leno from the town of Cobourg, took them out to the local Brook Creek and showed them how to do it properly, and then gave them an example of how she used the technology to mitigate 2 examples of a spill. One was with microplastics from the industrial park that Venture 13 is located in, and the other one was the Brookside correction facility, and their sensor broke and diesel overflowed into the Brook Creek. And a citizen was walking along Lake Ontario and reported it, and they were able to mitigate it simply because that citizen did observe and report it. So this is an example of how students and community members can use a citizen science approach to helping us and the municipal staff mitigate the problems that we're going to have to deal with climate change. So I've gone on and on. I'm going to turn it back to you for a question, but that's what we're doing. And then May 30th, we're hoping to get the post-secondary students to register now and then do their pitches on May 30th, again, through a hybrid presentation at Venture 13 and online.
That's a lot of stuff, obviously. And I think what's interesting to me about hackathons often is the limited nature of them, right? It's often a weekend or sometimes a day. And that was the original plan, and previous hackathons have done that. So what this has really morphed into a little bit more time to actually think about the challenges, conceptualize what you might do and so on. So I think it's actually to the advantage of those participating, I think, that they'll have a bit more opportunity.
Keith, we're really excited because the teachers today, the instructional leader at the school board said, Jonathan, what can we do to provide the resources that teachers will need in order to take advantage of this open data and these digital tools? And the one thing I said, well, you could provide single sign-on for teachers so that it takes away some of that administrative red tape for them to be able to access a GIS tool. So for example, every November, there's a Geographical Information System Week, just like we're doing National Youth Week now. So what we're doing is on an academic cycle, we're taking the November focus on geographical information systems and digital twins. And then once they have that training, they can apply it in the open data, which is usually the first week of March, and then our annual conference with the Go Open Data. So we've got this cycle going, and all we need to do is start to add capacity at using those 2 different events and events in between, like this one and the Open Government May 16th.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting and well planned, certainly, as people will discover if they're first hearing about it, or in fact start to carry on from where we were at the beginning. And time certainly goes fast too, doesn't it? So should we bring in Tony at this point and talk about some Energy Star? I'd like to welcome Tony. Sorry, I'm looking at my sheet here. Tony Ferguson. Got to get your last name right. If you want to bring on your camera, there's Tony. And Tony has spent over 5 years of experience working with sustainable buildings, which I think is the most interesting job. Most recently, he worked for Natural Resources Canada as manager of the Energy Star for Buildings program. And he's actually starting a new position as manager of corporate sustainability for Cadillac Fairview Corporation. Tony enjoys being in nature and looks forward to canoeing and backcountry camping this season. You and Gordon Lightfoot, I think. He's a big
Yes.
canoeist, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Great, beautiful land out there to camp on. So quite excited about that.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the program. And we're going to talk about the energy audits, right? Using NRCan's portfolio with some examples, I believe, is what you'd like to do for us. So I can let you take that away if you like.
Sure. I don't have any examples, but I can just talk about the importance of energy benchmarking, which is what, is a sort of a fancy industry term for monitoring and managing your energy consumption. And at NRCan, Natural Resources Canada, one of the tools that we manage is Portfolio Manager. Now, it's not proprietary to NRCan. It's a tool that was developed by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency back in the 90s, I believe. It's been around for quite a while, but it basically allows you to enter your building data into the tool, enter your utility bill information, so your gas bill, your electric bill. It even does water and waste. And you enter this information and the tool allows you to track your energy consumption. And that's important because it's cliche saying in the industry, but what you don't measure, you can't manage. So if you don't know how much you're using, if you're not really paying attention to it, you don't really know if you're wasting energy, if you can be reducing your energy usage. So that Portfolio Manager tool is a great way to see how much energy you're using and if there are any opportunities for improvement.
Yeah, I think, excuse me, I'm gonna cough. Yeah, I think that kind of experience, I think, really bodes well too for future opportunities, right? I just think the industry itself has lots of um, opportunity, really, for those that might be interested in both environment and also using some of their data skills, right, together. It's a good opportunity. I mean, um, you've had about 5 years experience, you said. You're starting a new job as well, so you're sort of in the thick of that. I guess the curve of people coming into it. And what are your reactions to that as actually your career?
I think it's great. There are a lot of people coming into it. I think people realize the benefits of it. I think where it's mostly happening is in the commercial real estate industry. So a lot of, big, tall office buildings, like, 60, 70, 80 foot or any 80-story towers they use a lot of energy. They use a lot of water. I've seen some of the energy bills, like it's pretty shocking seeing, an Enbridge bill for $60,000 instead of mine, which is a couple $100. So, a 10% energy savings on that bill is going to be $6,000. That's not insignificant. So a lot of people are realizing the sort of two prongs of the benefit. And the first prong is energy savings. Obviously, you want to save energy and reduce cost savings rather, but also energy savings and the importance for the environment. So, burning natural gas creates greenhouse gas emissions. Depending on what province you're in, Ontario is pretty clean with our nuclear and hydro, except for the
Recorded.
Sorry.
Oh,
Sorry. I thought you were saying something, Jonathan. Yeah, except for, the peaker gas plants, but Ontario is mostly clean, but, Nova Scotia or Alberta, where they burn a lot of coal, your power isn't going to be as clean. But no matter where you are, it's still important to reduce your electricity consumption. So a lot of buildings are sort of the commercial office buildings are pioneers in this, but I think it's going to move to residential next, and that's probably where Green Button comes in.
Yeah, a good segue. Just before we go there, we were talking in the green room just about the difficulty, I guess it's the yin yang of improving building ventilation and so on, which some of that has come from COVID. Dentist offices in particular have redone their offices, so they've got the big things that we're talking about that clean the air. Airlines, all of them are using that. But juxtaposed with that is the fact that it draws more energy. So that may be another issue that gets further dealt with, I guess, as we go down the line. And as you try to encourage people to have better buildings, they're going to have to reconcile that. You mentioned the cost of $60,000. Yeah, that is ginormous For sure. I can imagine if that was your bill. And when it does translate into the homeowners too, even though they're dealing with less bills, they still will be able to get a lot more value, right? If they move in this direction and they start taking measures to actually improve and analyze, which again comes down to green button too a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Keith,
Yeah,
yeah,
Jonathan.
can I just with the green button, it's really not well understood, but it will open opportunities for third-party companies in Ontario. And to Tony's point, once they have an accurate measurement of the building's consumption, they can also take the accurate measurements of that building, sort of like the blueprint, the CAD programs. And what they can do is a solar panel company will come in and they will say, given where the building is located and its exposure to the sun and what have you, or whatever other environmental conditions are around that surrounding the building, then what they can do is they can actually say, this is the exact type of equipment that will give you this kind of return on your investment. So rather than 6,000, they may be able to extend that to more savings. And then the savings can go into paying for the life cycle of those assets. But more importantly, it makes those assets more resilient to the extreme weather patterns that we're going to see.
Yeah, and just if I could go off of Jonathan's point, that was the low end. Like that was $6,000 is 10 if you achieve 10% savings. Some of the savings can range anywhere from 5 to 25%. So you could even see up to a quarter savings just from energy benchmarking. And there are also other things you can do like building commissioning, which is just sort of like a tune-up for your building, making sure the lighting systems and HVAC systems and pumps, motors, all those sorts of things are just running in tune and as efficiently as possible. You can get even more savings through that. So all those things are really important to do. And then just going back to what you were saying earlier, Keith, about fresh air and COVID and ventilating buildings, I think that one thing to remember, important thing to keep in mind is there's always a trade-off, right? We use more energy because we want to be comfortable and we want to be protected from airborne viruses or whatever. So, it's all about how much you're willing to trade. Like I keep my house at a nice crisp 18 degrees in the wintertime because that saves a lot of gas. I'm used to it. I'm totally fine with putting on a sweater, but to stay warm. But some people have different thresholds for comfort, I guess. So that's a really important thing to keep in mind and something that can affect energy usage quite a bit.
Yeah, I think you're right. I remember in the office space when I was working with the city of Toronto, there was lots of arguments about that, especially in the summer with the cooling.
Yeah.
They tended to keep it a little higher, meaning it was warmer, right? And yeah, I found it easier in the winter to put on a sweater than in the summer to take off pants or whatever, short pants kind of thing was a little frowned upon at the time. But some workplaces are actually moving that direction, right? Where you've got a bit more freedom that way just because of the energy that, if you're not as dressed up, you don't need as much air conditioning. Correct. Yeah, I think Green Button certainly is a fascinating initiative and it's well represented in the hack for sure. And does that actually make our segue into Tovan, Jonathan, or do we need to cover any more in the Green Button? Okay, so let's bring in our next speaker, who is Tovan Lew. I'm going to bring on your camera. There's Tovan. And Tovan is a youth ambassador of Sustainable Cobourg, as well as a biomedical science student at Trent University. He's passionate about beekeeping and volunteers with the Trent Apiary. Am I saying that right? Apiary?
Yep.
The Trent Gardens and the Northumberland Hills Hospital. Tovan is looking forward to engaging more youth in sustainability through work with Sustainable Cobourg and beyond. So welcome, Tovan.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I guess you're going to talk to us a bit about Sustainable Cobourg and the whole idea of getting youth more involved in the ambassador's call to action for National Youth Week, which is coming up. So we'll let you take the stage here.
Thank you. I just wanted to touch base firstly on something really exciting. A fourth-year Trent student who has been working with Sustainable Cobourg created the podcast series called Making Nature Matter. That has been touching on a bunch of different, or basically Heidi Sitsky, the student, has been interviewing many experts in environmentalism. One of which, for example, was a beekeeper from Guelph, which I found particularly interesting. And even as someone who's really interested in it could still learn more. Those are going to be through the Sustainable Cobourg YouTube channel. So I kind of just wanted to highlight that as well. But first of all, I got involved in Sustainable Cobourg pretty much through other volunteer organizations in the community, just pretty much by word of mouth, which I think is part of the strategy to get more youth involved, like targeting specifically where youth will see, or the correct way to advertise or promote these opportunities towards them. For example, like social media is much more prevalent, and just like some of the ways students by word of mouth or through like announcements at schools are very important, because most of the conventional ways like posters or websites and YouTube channels might not necessarily meet our audience. So that's really important in the strategy. But overall, from the youth perspective, sometimes it seems that many of the climate change issues are very like macro in scale and a little daunting, just because a lot of the challenges are not like individually handleable. So I think something that's really important is also highlighting like what individuals can do, or what type of resources they can access. One of the things that I've been working on with Sustainable Cobourg is creating a series that highlights one youth every month in the community and what they do to be sustainable. So for example, there are sustainable practices in terms of like forestry and camping as we go into the season, as you were talking about canoeing and things like that, as well as or starting your own garden or reusing, recycling, just simple things like that, which can make like a really powerful impact that many youth can become a part of really easily. I really think one of the best ways though to get involved in sustainability is definitely through groups like Sustainable Cobourg or Open Data, just like supporting those types of events, which really brings it around to the promotion again, and just getting these events out to the youths. Yeah.
I'm wondering too, just in terms of age and demographics, a lot of, I find people, let's say in my age group, are also very interested in sustainability and so on. And it's kind of like a, top and tail kind of thing. And then there's this middle bunch who are, let's say, actively pursuing careers and, they're in the thick of it. But are you finding that that's true, or is it a stereotype? In other words, it really does reflect all of the age demographics, or are you seeing, in fact, commitment from youth, commitment from older adults, and there's a whole chunk in the middle who are probably, let's say, most in control over doing things, who aren't maybe as
Yeah.
committed?
No, I think I would agree based on, I'm not sure, it could be based on like the lifestyle, based on like the working lifestyle, like how much time they have to commit to these things, or like starting or just pursuing their career, starting family, things like that. Like it seems to me what I've observed is there's that like head and tail type situation. Although it seems really important. Like one of the things that I like to highlight, I guess, is the power of like just like youths as consumers, like when it comes to sustainability, because a lot of the markets kind of just want like rapid turnover to like consume, which is really detrimental to the environment, obviously. But not a lot of youths focus on that because they really just want the new thing. When that age demographic is really important for influencing business and the government, and then voting later on. But I would have to agree that there is also a subset in between that I think we could target more as well.
I think it's part of the challenge, isn't it? And I find personally too that sometimes you get caught up in the idea of it's desperate times and we're all doomed. And I think though when you bring it down more into what can I do, right? And there are things you can do, and like you mentioned, consuming. My wife and I have really evolved into like we like Value Village. They're not paying for any promotion. Maybe we should ask them here. But recycled clothing, right, and vintage
Yep.
clothing and so on can be really effective in terms of not always buying new, for example. And recently we looked at it's a hybrid car that we've got, and I mean we feel those are things that we can actually do. I'm wondering too, from a youth standpoint, is there that feeling of hopelessness, or are you finding that, on contrary to that, there is more optimism from youth when you talk about these issues?
When I talk about these issues, there seems to be like quite the dichotomy. Like there's the side that's very like they see the news, they see like the headlines, the postings from like leading scientists about where we're heading, like the TED Talks, the presentations in school. And a lot of the time is I think it's very like negatively oriented. And sometimes it's hard to see like the optimism. And then there's the other side, which is mostly focused on sustainability, new technology, like innovations. And when I speak to other youths, some of them can be stuck in like a mindset that, oh, this is just the eventuality, that you can't change it. We've been heading toward this path for quite a long time, and it's going to be, they just don't see like society changing that much to overcome these barriers. But then I think it's really important to highlight the actual changes that are being done, like the really monumental changes that are being done in terms of the technology, are like the government focus towards it, and which includes like businesses, and the focus or commitment towards sustainability, and also better energy consumption. But once I think that barrier is broken, I think that it's quite the motivation for anybody to be much less stagnant in their action towards becoming more sustainable. Because if they have this specific narrative that it's going all negative, then it's really hard to want to change anything.
Yeah, yeah, actually, good thoughts. Let's enlarge this to the panel from the sense of moving somewhere. Like, how do you see the hackathon, for example, assisting this process? And Jonathan, you'll be doing some live events in Cobourg as well. We're back to live and in color with real people interacting with real people. But maybe from the aspect of Cobourg as, let's say, a pilot place moving forward with some of these issues around climate. How do you see it growing, or is it in fact going quite well already? I mean, what's your status update on all of this?
Yeah, the status update is the town is doing its job and following its protocol for getting consultants to consult the community, to come up with actionable items to follow up on the climate action declaration. But that's going to be like a 2-year process before we get the final report. And then you tender that to look at how we're going to renew the life cycle of our assets, the natural build assets. So using the tools like Tony's described. But one of the big missing points is, for example, rather than doing individual residents, it would be better to do those like a whole neighborhood. So you get to the same economy of scales with commercial. And to do that, you need to engage not just the community. We got a lot of wealthy people that retired from Toronto, but our biggest area where we could have a major impact, it's called the Depot, and they have oil tanks. So these are renters, and it's owned by a Hamilton developer. So we would have to engage the developer and give them that commercial model. And we'd also have to engage the rental people who are would be considered low and moderate income. And you would have to pay for them babysitting, or you have to do things to get them there, because most of the engagement opportunities you go to, but that the consultants run, they're all older people. They all have, white hair or no hair like me. So they need to know how to engage youth. And that was one of the things Heidi did. She did a deputation, 22-year-old, a deputation to the town of Cobourg saying, your youth engagement strategy is not working. And then here are some suggestions, and here's a use case from Peterborough that you might be able to adapt to achieve your strategy. Because right now, you can't just say COVID has blocked that strategy. That's just using an excuse. You have to be able to say, okay, we were forced to use this digital technology. Everybody's zoomed out, but how are we going to improve on that to come up with these face-to-face meetings that are supported with this technology? So we're moving in that direction. And we had a successful event with our environmental technician, going outdoors with a grade 9 science classroom to test the water, the Brook Creek I mentioned. And we're going to expand on that.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that Cobourg seems to be as active comparing to, like, I live in Toronto. So comparing to Toronto, I mean, there's certainly elements of activity and so on, but it's less solidified, I suppose. And maybe that's an advantage to a smaller place, less duplication of effort, perhaps, right? If something's going on, people might say, well, I might as well join this as opposed to starting my own group. I mean, do you find that's
Yeah.
true? Because I think sometimes the disparity between different groups and even slight variations on thinking, pro pipelines versus non-pro pipelines, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
Because there's arguments to be made all around these issues. And again, for the average consumer, sometimes it's hard to know
Yeah.
what's right,
And
what's wrong. Yeah.
we're just rolling out a broadband. It was announced last Friday. So we're going to get broadband to 13,500 rural homes. Like, they have nothing right now. And that'll be open source in 2 years' time, and when it's built out. So that's promising. But we need to now think, okay, so what opportunities is that going to generate using the green button and using other citizen science like the Maidan and what have you? How can we take advantage of that for rural communities? And then how can we do strategic twins with other rural communities, looking at community well-being through different indicators than just the general, what is it called, gross domestic product? So that was one of the workshop things, is moving towards an indicator of outcomes for rural communities that are measurements of community well-being in those rural communities, not just from urban communities. So that's another thing that we're looking at, is the data, for example. How do we use this data to profile our rural communities and then get them to form consortia to be able to take advantage of this broadband as it gets rolled out?
Yeah, I think it's kind of the great divide in some cases, isn't it? Rural access to strong internet signals, et cetera, versus the big metropolitan places. And even like 5G service, all that kind of stuff tends to roll out in the bigger places, right?
Yeah.
I wonder, Tony, in regard to your new job of going into Cadillac Fairview, I don't want to put you on the spot corporate-wise, but Cadillac Fairview has malls everywhere. I mean, do you feel it's something that an organization such as that can really help drive these processes because they have a presence in a lot of communities, not just one place?
Well, yeah, I think it can. And there's I think one good reason for that is just sort of the captive audience that it has. Like, I don't know how many people go through the Eaton Center every year, but if Cadillac, which they own, if Cadillac Fairview did some kind of a sustainability initiative and really targeted that towards the tenants in the building, or I guess they're not tenants, well, the shoppers would be visitors, but target it towards them, you could really impart a lot of knowledge on a lot of people. And it would be, it would be from a position of credibility, because it's the building owner that's doing this initiative. So I think that's a good opportunity. And it also, the other real leverage that Cadillac Fairview has is that it owns the buildings. Like Jonathan was just talking about the depot, and how the people who live there don't actually own the space, they're just renting. And that really creates a barrier, because they are more likely to, the people who want to actually do something, but it's really the owners who don't even have any involvement in the community. They live in Hamilton, who are running the show. So it's just about getting all parties involved and really making the case for doing these sorts of things. And Jonathan and Tovan touched on a couple things, just with the local example, with the hackathon. I think you have three really key ingredients there. You have open data and a hackathon, which gives you good information. You have potentially a small group of people, like a neighborhood or maybe a building like Venture 13, what have you, to implement these kinds of initiatives in. And then at the end of it, you get a pilot project or a case study. which shows that it worked. It shows what whatever, if it was an energy savings initiative or whatever it might be, that it works, and here are the results. And then you can scale that up and expand it to other neighborhoods, other towns, other wherever else. So I think there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah, I think too, it's an ongoing thing. Like we often talk about open data as having that challenge too. It's not something that you can complete. And I mean, the open data folks have been working on it for a long time. And I think awareness becomes such a big thing. And probably we're seeing I don't want to say peaking yet, but awareness of climate is a lot stronger than it's ever been.
Yeah.
Receptivity to information, I think, is higher now than it's ever been.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on Tony, follow up. We had Trent students actually use the portfolio manager to do an energy audit of the Venture 13 building. And on top of that building are solar panels that was captured through this drone 3D model. And what you can do with that then is you combine it with climatology data, which is integrated into the portfolio manager. And then that audit, they presented to the town of Cobourg. So there's an example of that. And then Tony has graciously donated his time pro bono to do some more buildings in the town of Cobourg. And ideally, we'll hit the mush sector. And then you can begin to build capacity both within staff that are operating these buildings and the community that are using the buildings.
Yeah, I think it's definitely enlarging the cooperation, understanding, and let's say the growth of in the right direction. So it's back to what you were saying, Tovan, that you can adopt a view, which could be negative, but really there is lots and lots of things going on. And our conference just passed really talked about a lot of those things. It was very positive in terms of the content of what's going on. And another reason why I like the fact that the hack is actually continuing, because too often you'll do something like we just did. It was called Open Earth, Healthy Humans, Healthy Planet. And, it comes and goes, right? And what happens after that? So I think through the challenges, hopefully, you're actually looking, Jonathan, you can comment on this. You're looking for development both of some analytics and perhaps apps, right? Just tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I mean, with the green button, they're looking at, whoops. Can you hear me?
Yep. Oops, we just lost you. See if, yeah.
My eyesight. The green button is to promote third parties that would come up with services like an app that would help homeowners or commercial owners to take advantage of tools like Portfolio Manager and come up with these services. So that is really oriented towards an app, and they would have access to a sandbox where the utility building information is available, like peak, mid-peak, and off-peak, and then what subsidies are available from provincial government. And then what they would do is they would work these companies like solar panel companies or heat pump companies or whatever, they would be able to then come up with a cost analysis, cost benefit analysis, and actually a budget that would help the homeowners or the people that are using the building to embrace more conservational behavior. So that ties into what Tony's talked about, and also what Tovan is doing in terms of social media and getting it out to the young people to show them that, if you get outdoors and into your community, you can see that we're actually making a difference, or you can make a difference individually through your actions at the municipal level, or in the case of Toronto, at the neighborhood level.
Yeah, now we want to, we're getting close to our time. We've got about 6 minutes left. We wanted to make sure we give enough information about what's coming up. And also, Tovan, I think you wanted to talk about the National Youth Week. So maybe we'll have you talk about that, and then we'll come back to Jonathan to promote the sequence of what's coming next.
Yeah, so as National Youth Week, I was doing some promotions through our social media, just on Sustainable Cobourg. But as well, I would really just like to highlight again, just the possibility of youth getting out there and really just seeing all of the opportunities that are in our community, because it's really surprising how much is going on when you open your eyes to new things.
Okay, excellent. And Jonathan, so we've got, let's see, well, you might as well say the target dates. I know Wednesday the 25th is important, as is Monday the 30th. So explain what's next.
So we will be getting a few classrooms to join us at Venture 13. This will also be a hybrid event, so in person and hybrid online with Zoom. And the idea behind that is to follow up with the workshops on April the 21st, as well as the demo and conversation, the challenge pitches on Saturday, April the 23rd. So we will have those on a Google Doc for each of the challenges. And if people register at that location, www.go-opendata.ca/hack.
I think it's
Good
Good.
hack 22, sorry. There we go, there it's up. And you'll get then the link to the information and resources that will be updated as we move towards May 30th, which is the actual event where the judges will come in and judge and evaluate using criteria that we will share to those teams. And they will do like a pitch. A typical hackathon pitch is maybe, what's the business case for your solution and how are you using technology to address that solution, support it. And that would be like typically a 5 to 10 minute presentation with a Q&A in the breakout rooms, and then the finalists will pitch to the general audience at the end of the day. And we'll have more information on our website at Sustainable Cobourg for the calendar of events, as well as the Google Doc information for the teams. And the teams will be responsible for setting up their collaboration space. They might use Slack channel, or they might just use Google Docs. But when it comes to the actual event itself and the pitches, we'll be using Zoom in the breakout rooms, where they will be evaluated by the judges and then selections made and prizes awarded. That will be the afternoon of May the 30th.
Okay, it sounds like a lot to come. Might you put in the chat the address for Sustainable Cobourg, just so people have access to that?
Okay, I will. I'll put the link into the event on the 20. It's on our calendar for the 25th, and then they'll be able to get the other events as we put them up.
No, excellent.
I'll do that.
Excellent. All right. Well, we're just about out of time on this one. I do have a couple of things I want to mention from the Go Open Data arena. This is a loaded month for us coming out of our conference in April. We had this event, of course, and next Tuesday, another cafe. We're talking open data, tech, and civic space with a civic tech person extraordinaire, actually, Christina McGeer, who has done work in Calgary and is in Toronto. She's an exciting, passionate person about not just tech, but really the times that we're living in. So we're going to have a great discussion. On May 17th, we're doing a digital transformation in government. And that is Open Gov Week. So it's our contribution to something going on there. And May 25th, Open Innovation in Smart Communities. So we've got something pretty well every week in May. And we hope you'll join us for those events as well. And it's been a pleasure talking to you folks today. I'm glad we can contribute some promotion for you. And by all means, look at our LinkedIn channel for those who want promotion for these events, including yours, and also on Twitter at go_open_data. And you can find us on LinkedIn just by searching Go Open Data for our company page. That being said, once again, Tony and Tovan and Jonathan, thank you. And we'll just end briefly with a quick credit wrap up, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot, folks, and have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Keith.